about to tell him close it.
Why
Close it now.
closet?
Hi, everybody. How are you doing? Just wanted to do an update today about the vote on the Emergencies Act that we saw today in Parliament. And or rather yesterday, the debate, of course, in the Senate is going on now, and we expect to have a vote in a couple of days. But I just wanted to make some comments, and I know there's a lot of fear out there. It's always important that we're not fearful. No matter what comes our way, we have to make sure that we are making decisions based on courage and strength, and not out of fear, because our opponents like to create an atmosphere of fear around us. We need to make sure that we are standing on truth, standing on positivity, and standing on courage. So, I just want to comment. There's a lot of people that are afraid and worried about what's going on with the Emergencies Act, and of course, the imposition of the Emergencies Act is not right. It was not necessary. It was not warranted in any way. However, it happened. It was passed, and it's here. Now, I just wanted to make some comments on what we may expect. During the vote in the House of Commons, the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois, to their credit, voted against the passage of this act. Various Liberal and NDP members in the debate made comments to the effect that we have to be really careful using this act, that they didn't feel that necessarily is warranted. And now they ended up voting for it anyways, because this whole vote was construed as a confidence motion. So some members explicitly said, listen, I don't want to trigger an election, some Liberal members, but I personally don't think this is warranted. So, those are positive things. And the Emergencies Act invocation will expire after 30 days unless extended. And I personally don't believe that the rationale will be there. It certainly wasn't to begin with, but now that they've, recklessly pulled all the protesters and smashed windows and did all of that awful stuff, there's no one there anyway. So the rationale for extending this beyond 30 days, I just don't think is there. And I don't think the NDP have the political capital left to support the Liberals again if they were to try and do that. I don't even think the Liberals have that. Already in a committee meeting today on Parliament Hill, a deputy finance assistant was answering questions about what's going on with these bank seizures, and they confirmed that banks are already unfreezing assets that were freezed, and they will not be freezing assets going forward. So this is something that again is positive. Obviously, we're against the imposition of the Emergencies Act, but this is something that is good news. And so I'm just going to read from this article here. This is an article that was posted tonight. You can Google it. Banks begin unfreezing accounts of Freedom Convoy supporters. And that was something that an assistant deputy minister at the Department of Finance revealed today. So just look up that article if you want to know more. And basically, initially this was targeted at people that, and the RCMP confirmed this, saying that the list of people who were heavily involved in the Freedom Convoy were influencers in the illegal protests in Ottawa, and owners and or drivers of vehicles who did not want to leave the area. So again, obviously, I don't think they needed to do anything. Again, as even the New York Times pointed out, this was a protest that was, at worst a nuisance, but certainly, and again, that's not my opinion, but I'm saying even the left-leaning New York Times said, listen, there's no need for this kind of, violent dispersal of the people gathered there. They're there to voice their grievances. So this is something, again, that never should have happened. But already I think the Liberals are feeling a bit of pressure. I mean, to use the heavy hand of force against protesters goes against all the values that they've been spouting for years, even decades. So I believe that Um, I believe that what we're seeing here is something that again is unfortunate, but we will be, I believe, seeing some reprieve on this. So, the what we saw with the Emergencies Act again, unwarranted to see this imposed, but it looks like political pressure and just the results of what we're seeing is now um, coming to fruition in terms of them relaxing some of their mandates with respect to the banks. Now, that does not mean that the fight is over. So I want to encourage people to stay positive, but also to stay engaged. And so there is several things that you can do to act right now. So right now the vote is going on in the Senate over the Emergencies Act. So it's passed in the House of Commons, but the Senate also has to pass it. They're debating that. It will likely um, be voted on in a couple of days. So, what I need you to do is reach out to senators. Okay, I'm going to post a list on my Facebook for contact information for senators. So, reach out to the senators and say, listen, this act should never have been invoked in the first place. And secondly, all the protests, have basically been scrubbed off the streets by, overuse of police power. But there's no need for this act to continue. So do the right thing and vote it down. You need to email your senators and tell them that. Secondly, you can sign my petition on my Ontario Party webpage about ending the Emergency Act. So that's ontarioparty.ca. Go there and sign that. We're trying to create a huge petition with respect to this. So those are two things you can do right now. You need to stay engaged. You need to work with any freedom party that's in your province. Okay, so any political movement or organization that's fighting for freedom, whether legally or politically or otherwise, give them your support. Volunteer if you can. Donate to them if you can. Run for them if you can. So there's many options in different provinces, and I'm not going to get into all of those options right now, but be involved in the freedom movement in your province. Remember, what we're seeing here from the government is a wonderful, positive um, um, a response, rather, sorry, to a wonderful and positive event, and that was the truckers' convoy. Yes, they're cracking down on it. Yes, they're using, police brutality and things that, we never thought we'd see in this country. But it was because of a response to an event that gathered, so many people from across the country, captured the imaginations of people around the world, and really united so many of us here in Canada. We saw, groups of ladies singing and making sandwiches and muffins and all other kinds of things for truckers all across the country. We saw so many displays of patriotism and coming together. And obviously, there were so many warm moments in the trucker protest as well. And I was there. I was there to see it. It was a very warm atmosphere. And notwithstanding a very small incidents of hooliganry and other things like this, they were better behaved than anything. You could go to a concert with thousands of people, and they would be worse behaved than what we saw on Parliament Hill. They were very well behaved given the size of the gathering. So those are my thoughts on what's happened over the last couple of days. Remember, there are absolutely reasons to be very concerned about what we're seeing here in Canada, but there's also reasons for hope, and there's also reasons for optimism. Don't do anything out of fear. Don't leave the country or make rash financial decisions based on what we're seeing. The RCMP does not, as I said, in House Committee today, they've said the banks are beginning to unfreeze assets. They're not going after additional people at this time. And, again, this is something that is the reality of the situation. Does what the government has done raise additional questions about the fragility of our freedom here in Canada? It absolutely does. But let's remember to stay positive. And what Justin Trudeau has done, remember, this is not helping him. This is hurting him. He is less liked than ever before in history. And what we're seeing now is beginning to open even, average people's eyes to what is going on. So stay positive, stay honest, stay courageous, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, and God bless you, Canada.